You know that feeling when you feel like you're running on a treadmill, you're working harder and harder, but you're just not getting anywhere new? Well, that might be because of this really strange thing called the growth paradox. It's where your greatest natural talent can actually become the very thing that holds you back. It's a sneaky little thing called the talent trap, and honestly, a lot of us fall into it without even realizing it.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Is that one thing everyone always praises you for? You know, being smart or creative or a natural. Is it secretly the very thing that's holding you back? I know it's a tough question, but figuring out the answer is really the first step to unlocking what you're actually capable of.
So here's how this trap actually works. When you get that label of talented, it starts to build this invisible glass wall all around you. It becomes your whole identity. And the fear of shattering that identity, the fear of proving you might not be so talented after all, it just paralyzes you. So you stop taking risks. And when you stop taking risks, you stop growing. Simple as that.
All right, so let's really dive into this paradox. I mean, how on earth can a strength become a weakness? It sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, to understand it, we need to get into the psychology behind it all, which is honestly fascinating and not at all what you'd expect.
The root cause of this whole talent trap thing is what researcher Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. It's basically the belief that your skills, your smarts, your talents, they're all just set in stone. You've either got it or you don't. And if you're convinced you've got it, you will do pretty much anything to protect that idea.
And this mindset, it just actively sabotages you. You start looking at challenges like they're these massive threats, not opportunities. You stick to the easy path because you're terrified that if you try something hard and fail, it's like a final verdict that you were never talented to begin with. Your potential just dries up because you're too scared to try anything new.
So what does this actually feel like on the inside? Well, the best way to get a handle on the fixed mindset, and its much more powerful alternative, is to imagine them as two different voices battling it out inside your head.
So over on one side, you've got the fixed voice. It sees a challenge and it just freaks out, screaming, "Threat! My reputation is on the line!" It sees any failure as a permanent black mark. But then on the other side, you've got the growth voice. It sees that same exact challenge and says, "Awesome, a chance to learn something." It doesn't see failure as the end, it just sees it as data. It's just feedback for the next try.
Okay, so how do we get out of this trap? Well, the first rule is super simple, but it really does change everything. You have to prioritize effort over talent. That tiny little shift from telling someone you're so smart to you worked so hard can make a world of difference.
And listen, this isn't just some nice theory. There is some serious proof behind it. There was this amazing experiment with students that showed just how dramatically the kind of praise they got changed how they performed. Here's how they set it up. They took two groups of kids. Group 1 was always praised for how smart they were. "Wow, you're so smart." Group 2, on the other hand, was praised for how hard they tried. "Wow, you must have worked really hard on this." Then they gave both groups a much, much harder task.
The results were just staggering. The smart group, they gave up, and they gave up fast. They were afraid that struggling would prove they weren't actually smart. But the effort group, they kept going. They showed way more persistence because they saw the tough problem as just another chance to work harder. Their identity wasn't on the line.
The big takeaway here is so important. Your brain isn't fixed. It's flexible. Scientists call it neuroplasticity. Every single time you struggle and put in that effort, you are literally, physically building a stronger brain. Think of it like a muscle. Talent might be where you start, but real, long-term success comes from putting in the reps.
Okay, this brings us to rule number 2, and this one's maybe a little tougher to swallow. You have to completely change how you think about failure. You have to learn to, as they say, embrace the suck. Stop running away from the hard stuff. That's where all the good lessons are.
Now get this for a dose of reality. Only about 1% of people have actually mastered their relationship with failure. The other 99% of us, we let failure define us. But that elite 1%, they just treat failure as pure data. It's feedback. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you want the perfect case study for this 1% mindset, look no further than the guy everyone thinks is maybe the most talented athlete ever, Michael Jordan. But here's the twist. His story isn't really about talent. It's a story about mastering failure. I mean, can you believe this? Michael Jordan was actually cut from his high school basketball team.
The coach thought he just wasn't talented enough. But instead of letting that define him, he switched into a growth mindset. He used that failure as rocket fuel. He practiced like a maniac and developed what his trainer called a calloused mind, a mind that was just toughened up by all the failure and hard work. He became a legend not because of his talent, but because of how he responded to failure.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Let's talk about the final, most practical part, how you can get this 1% mindset, by basically reprogramming your own internal software.
Just remember this, talent is only the starting line. It gets you into the race, sure, but it absolutely does not guarantee you'll finish. The people who really, truly succeed are the ones who get that the journey starts with talent, but the rest of it is just a daily grind to get a little bit better.
And I love this analogy because it's so empowering. Your mind isn't like computer hardware, fixed from the factory. It's software. And what's the best thing about software? You can update it anytime you want. If you don't like the program that's running right now, the one that's telling you you might fail, you can choose to install an update.
And here's a simple 4-step guide to run that update. First, just start to recognize those fixed mindset thoughts when they pop up. Second, in that moment, realize you have a choice. Third, you got to consciously challenge that thought with the growth voice we talked about. And finally, and this is the most important part, you have to take on the very challenge your old programming is telling you to run away from.
So at the end of the day, it all comes down to a choice. You can stay put, comfortable in what you already believe about yourself, or you can take the harder path, the one that leads to building a version of you that, right now, might seem totally impossible.
So, I'll leave you with one last question to really think about. What is the one fixed belief you have about yourself that you are going to challenge starting today?